because they are always afraid of missing the readers in the middle of reading their reading. So they should always insert the important sentence in the first part of the paragraph. So in that sense, you should check at least the first sentence, at least the first paragraph, to grab the idea, outline of the idea. And then, if you can have a time, maybe you may check this kind of figure 2 or figure 3 or figure 5, because you will see the detailed description of the figures around here. But you may skip it, because you have already seen the movies. Okay. And so once again, okay, so this is the second part of the technical detail, so you may just skip, and you may just see the first paragraph. And this part is really important and less important from here. So unfortunately, they have the description about our system recalculate something like that. So they should mention about how they are doing in this part. So you may see, you may read, but you can skip. Okay, actually, so I don't mark anything on this part because it takes time to understand this part. And then you may see the figure 3 around here. You may find the description around here. And so this is the end of the part 3, section 3. So you should check it because you may find something to summarize the section 3, or you may see the introduction for the coming part. So actually in this paper, so you succeeded in finding this kind of information. In the following subsection, we describe something. So this is a summary of the coming technical part. So it will be very helpful to understand the next part of the paper. Then this part begins. Once again, this part are important. So we consider something like that. So you may check it out. And then less important. Not less important, but takes time to understand this part. And figure 5. And once again, this is the end of the section 4.1. So 4.1. So you may see, you may check it. And unfortunately, this time there is no description about the summary of the 4.1, or no introduction about 4.2. So there's no information about that. And then the first part of the section 4.2, and this is the end of the 4.2, and you may find this kind of extra description about their system or their ideas. And actually, so they are mentioning about that this part has some relation with section 6.1. So if you want to read the section 6.1, you should also read this section 4.2. And then this is once again, this is the third part of the technical detail. So once again, so you just check it out with the first paragraph, and skip the latter part. And this is the end of the section 5, and unfortunately, there's nothing on at the end of section 5, so you need to move on to the section 6. And so in the post-process phase, so they are summarizing this section in this part, in these sentences. And once again, so we use figure 7 or 8 or something like that. And so the first part and the end part, so this is end part. We also provide something of blah, blah, blah. And as you may see that they spend 2 figures on the collision avoidance, this kind of post-process will be somewhat important for them. And then the new part begins here. And And this is the end of the technical part. And then experimental results start here. So good papers should have the sentences which is talking about the purpose of this experiment, or summarize the experiment. Unfortunately, I don't think this is a good description for the coming experiment of this paper. So a little bit less quality, has less quality comparing with the standard level of the SIGGRAPH papers. But anyway, you may see this kind of documentation. Okay. Oh, sorry. But I want to finish up this paper before the break. And say you may see the figures and figures and figures and figures and figures. So if we want to see if we want to check out the actual performance with the figures, you may see. But thanks to the SIGGRAPH, so you just what you asked is probably just see the movies, and you may skip all this part. And they have discussion. Actually, this is similar to the conclusion. And then you see the same sentence. We introduced to a novel group motion, which is, you may find, we introduce a new graph structure in this paper in the abstract or something like that. So they repeat the same sentence actually. And on the very first part of the discussion, that means so they really think this is important. This is a new part of this paper. And then, so this is the first part of the discussion. This should be very important, and they don't forget about appealing their advantage. So you may see this kind of sentence. Our advantage is blah, blah, blah. Then, because this is a good paper, they also mentioning about the limitation or the bad part of the paper. But it should be shown in the second or the third, not in the first part, not in the last part, but in the middle. Because good papers should have the important sentence in the first part and the last part. So and this kind of relatively less important ones should be placed in between. And sometimes you may find a conclusion, but in this paper, so discussion is a kind of a conclusion. So they just skip the conclusion and quit the paper, end the paper. So all the papers, most of the papers of the SIGGRAPH, or most of the paper well organized computer IT papers, intelligent information technology papers, we may have this kind of organization. So repeat the appeal point from as many as possible. So far they are allowed to write. So in the introduction, in the abstract, in the introduction, in the conclusion, and hopefully in the beginning part of the technical part, and hopefully in the first part of the experiment or discussion. So you may see the similar sentence from time to time, and you should cite that sentence to summarize this paper. That's important. That's the only part you have to do to let you know, let your friends know this kind of papers. Okay, once you know the skills, after the break, let's try to see the second paper, unwrap mosaics in this way. So this time, next time, so you just allowed to just 5 minutes. But this time you know the skill, you may find a good sentences to summarize that. Okay, so we have a 15 minutes break and start with, oh, sorry. I want to quit the class